Protect the flock, we rally in the lion's den. Shield to shield, the storm is thundering. Unleash the roar, let the lions run towards the night until the battle's won.
All right, welcome back to the Lion's Den. We're going to continue on with 6 Day Count until I get this booklet read. Seems like I've been reading it for 3 years now. But we're going to finish this book. I may read it again because, like I said, don't be good at anything. If you're going to do something, be great. And if you want to be great, repetition. You got to keep doing it over and over and over again. That's in anything. Any sport. You want to be good, just do average things. You want to be great, go above and beyond. And so if you want to be great at 6 Day Count, since we're in it, it's going to save a lot of time and money for the city letter carrier when you're putting routes back, when you're getting them paid. So if you want to be great, repetition. Just keep doing it. As boring as it is to read. Every Wednesday just to read for however long till I get tired of reading. It's repetition. I didn't start anything to just be average or good. I wanted to be great at everything that I did. That doesn't mean I was, but I prepared myself that way. So if you want to be great at 6 Day Counts, if that's something you're interested in, repetition. You have to, it's constantly in it. Section 2 of the M39, just constant, getting it down pat, because that's where we are right now. Now, when you come into another joint process, they say it's probably going to be January or something to that effect. Be great at that. If it's joint, we can't grieve joint processes, but we can grieve these. That's the reason we need to be educated and be great at it, is because we can grieve 6 Day Counts. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to educate ourselves on 6 Day Counts as long as 6 Day Counts are around. Okay? So we're going to continue on with it. 6 Day Counts. Reading. Here we go. Office. 1. Office time work allowances. The M39 handbook contains the following explanation of minimum time allowances for each office function. Now this is going to make you mad because this is our fixed office time. M39 Exhibit 222.214A4. I'll read it again. M39 Exhibit 222.214A4. And the reason I read that again is because people are always asking, what is incorporated into our fixed office time? This is it. Okay? Time allowances for carrier office work. 1. Routing letter size mail. Now we're going about the 18 and 8. That's the only standard we have in the office. And these are things that we'll incorporate into, like JB did with the hour office time, when we're saying that, hey, we have the only standard we have in the office is 18 and 8, and that's it. That's it. You have a pull-down standard, but 18 and 8 is the only standard we have. So routing letter size mail, 18. Routing all other size mail, use notice 26. Maximum time allowance for routing mail to convert pieces to minutes, 8. So that's your 18 and 8. 18 for letter size mail, 8 for flats. That's how we basically say it. 4. Strapping mail in bundles or placing in trays, preparing relays and placing mail into satchels for each 70 pieces regardless of character. Minimum allowance 3 minutes. Strapping mail in bundles for markup at computerized Ford unit. Lines 1, 2, 3 combined mail volume, strapping out pieces and markup pieces is used in determining time allowance at 70 pieces per minute. That's pulling it down. 8. For each 10 pieces of classes of mail separated for forwarding or return, 1 minute. For each 10 pieces of all classes of mail separated for forwarding or return, 1 minute. Periodicals marked up. For each 2 pieces handled for forwarding or return, 1 minute. For each Form 3579 undeliverable periodical, standard A and B, or controlled circulation matter, 2. For each 4 pieces marked up, mail marked deceased, temporarily away, refused, vacant, occupant mail of obvious value, or no mail receptacle, 1. For each change of address, including Form 3546, recorded on Forms 1564B and 3982, 2. Insured receipts turned in. 1. Registered, certified, COD, express mail, customs, and postage due, keys. Form 3868, signing for returning funds or receipts, and for partial completion of Form 3849, name or address for identification. Base minimum allowance is 6 minutes. That's your base. Now, of course, your president refused to grieve the certifieds in the DPS, and he acknowledged that when he said that they had agreed to reduce our 33 minutes of fixed office time to 20 minutes. He said because we no longer do certifieds in the office. So he conceded that argument when they said we're going to start putting certifieds in the DPS so that we can take more of your office time away. He conceded that. To me, if you know that a metric coming out is an hour office time, you don't concede one thing. And if they say, well, it's put somewhere else, then just leave it alone. But if you want to say 33 minutes to 20 minutes, then you're going to have to address that through arbitration. I will not concede that. I will not say, well, that time is basically, you put it over. I'm not going to do it. Because we already have managers coming out outside of the joint process, which is where they say this 20 minutes is going to take effect. Outside of that process saying, y'all have agreed to 20 minutes. That's happening. If you look on social media, they're putting it up there. Well, our manager came out today and said only 20 minutes of fixed office time, so y'all now have 40 minutes of office time. And we knew that was going to happen. We said that was going to happen, right? We called it because of 1983 when you had those parameters that we said, watch what they do. Watch them because they're not going to do anything right. So therefore, you cannot give them that in. You can't open that door just a millimeter because they'll stick their toe in it. And he continues to do it for some reason. I don't know why, but anyway, here we are. Withdrawing mail where applicable from distribution cases, trays, sacks, and or hampers, base minimum allowance is 5 minutes. Sequencing and collating bypass mail, representative time in minutes will be allowed for work function. Strapping out time, when mail must be placed in order of delivery, see 922.51D. Representative time in minutes will be allowed for the work function. Break, that's your local option. So if you take a break, you had 43 minutes of fixed office time. If you don't, 33 minutes of fixed office time. Vehicle inspection, see 922.51F. Base minimum allowance is 3 minutes. Now, they will say 3 minutes. Like when I said when they came and did our dry run, they had 3 minutes already on the sheet. And I jumped on the guy that was doing it. I said, why are you putting 3 minutes? Oh, that's just, that's your base minimum. I said, well, why are you putting it on there, though? Because it gives the impression that's how much we get. I went over the 26-point vehicle inspection, right? Remember that? The advanced vehicle safety check, vehicle check. You have to do all of those things that we went over. And it says base minimum allowance is 3 minutes. That's just the base minimum. It could take you 10 minutes. So watch that on your forms. If any of them tell you that you've got 3 minutes, that's a minimum, base minimum. It could take you 10 minutes. It could take you 15, depending on where your vehicle's at. Some vehicles are right next to the station. Some are all the way across the parking lot. And so just pay attention to that, okay, because it's going to vary. So make sure that they don't give you 3 minutes, all right, because that's what they'll try to do. And that's where that comes from. Base minimum allowance is 3 minutes. So stewards, pay attention to that. Carriers, pay attention to that on your forms. If they're trying to disallow time, a street waiting time, if they say you went past 3 minutes, no such thing. That's just the base minimum, all right? Personal needs, etc. Time allowances are printed on the form for each trip and must not be changed. Office work not covered by form. Work functions must be identified and approved as being necessary and of a continuing nature. Use comment section. Base minimum allowance is 9 minutes. Waiting for mail and all other office activities not performed on a continuing basis, which are excluded in computing net office time. That's line 22. Remember what we said about line 22. Be careful. 23, counting mail and filling out Form 1838C worksheet. Be careful. Make sure we're getting that time back. Note, for piece items, grant the next higher allowance in minutes for fractional units. Use actual times for lines 14 through 19 and lines 21 through 23 when those functions are performed. Computing standard office time under columns E, F, and G on Form 1838. If the actual time for each of lines 14, 15, 19, and 21 is less than the base minimum, and the carrier performs the function, the base minimum must be entered for the line item in the appropriate column. If the actual time exceeds the base minimum, an adjustment to that time cannot be shown, which is less than the base minimum. 2. Lines 14 through 23 on PIS Form 1838C. The following is a brief description of each of the line items used to record time during the week of route count and inspection on PS Form 1838C. During the week of inspection, carriers will be credited with the actual time it takes to perform the task as explained below. Line 14, accountable mail, 6 minutes minimum time allowance. Time spent when you stop casing mail to get your accountable mail, signing for it, filling out the name or address on the PS Form 3849, and casing the notice as a reminder, and go on to your next task in the afternoon, evening. Now, that time was taken from us because Renfro agreed that management could take our certifieds and put them in the DPS. Now, people say, well, on the scanner, it shows that you have a certified, so you can do that. You're taking that time away from us. When they put certifieds in the DPS, we didn't fight that nationally. Now, I know that Mike Carroll said he didn't feel like that was a grievance. I do. Any work standard you change, any work practice under Article 5 that you change, I say it's a grievance. If for the past 50 years I can show that I went to the accountable cart, signed for a certified, filled out the leave slip, and then you've changed that and you've put my certifieds in the DPS, I think we could show a strong case that you have changed a work standard or work practice under Article 5. I just believe that. Anyway, that's water under the bridge now. But line 15, withdrawal of mail. 5 minutes minimum time allowance. This includes time spent withdrawing mail from tubs or trays, cutting straps, removing plastic, etc. This line item also includes time you spend withdrawing mail from both the throwback and hot cases. The M39 states that 2 withdrawals of letter mail and 1 of papers for each trip with a final pull just prior to leaving time generally are sufficient. Line 16, sequencing and collating mail. Time spent collating or sequencing mail is recorded on this line. For example, time spent collating circulars to get down to 3 bundles in an FSS environment is recorded on line 16. Line 17, strapping out time. Most letter carriers will not use this line item. Line 17 is only used in very limited circumstances. The only time line 17 is used is when you have motorized curb delivery routes where the majority of the case separations contain more than 2 addresses per separation. In these instances, the letter carrier records the actual time to place the mail in the exact sequence of delivery instead of 1 minute for each 70 pieces. Line 18, break, 10 minutes minimum time allowance. In most offices, a 10-minute credit is given where the letter carrier takes a morning office break. If your office has a longer break than 10 minutes, keep in mind that more time must be credited for line 18. Line 19, vehicle inspection, 3 minutes minimum time allowance. Time spent inspecting your vehicle every morning is recorded on this line. Time starts when you get your key to go to your vehicle and ends when you come back into the office and begin your next task. Line 20, personal time, 5 minutes minimum time allowance. This time credit covers any personal needs that you may have while in the office, such as obtaining rain gear from your locker, restroom needs, etc. This time is not entered on Form 1838C. 5 minutes for line 20 is automatically calculated in the fixed office time. If your office has additional wash-up time, such time is entered on line 21, not line 20. And so that's a minimum time, 5 minutes. A lot of people are contacting me that when they see street waiting or any kind of waiting time, it's because the carrier took more than 5 minutes. Like if I have to go to the restroom for several times because I ate tacos the night before. and it takes me longer, they will hold you to 5 minutes. That's a minimum. Okay, that's a minimum. So make sure we're getting all the time back that we should. Okay, pay attention to that one especially. Line 21, recurring office work not covered by other line items. 9 minutes minimum time allowance. This covers a wide variety of office functions that you perform on a recurring, continuing basis. Generally speaking, recurring office time is an office task that occurs at least. Many of these functions are universal and take place on almost all, if not all, routes. Some examples in the morning are getting your scanner and setting it up, trips to the throwback case, getting your parcel hamper, checking for sleepers, AIMS, edit book, red book work, replenishing forms, verifying your hold mail, weekly safety talks, removing tags, returning empty equipment to a designated area, etc. Some examples in the afternoon and evening are taking care of outgoing mail collected on your route, placing your attempted parcels and 3M mail in the designated location, returning your parcel hamper to the designated location, processing undeliverable mail, trips to the throwback case, returning empty equipment to a designated area, etc. Line 22, non-recurring office work. Now this is the one you got to be careful with. Line 22 is for non-recurring, non-continuing office functions. Because line 22 items are not regular office activities, you will not receive credit on the route evaluation for the time spent performing them. Activities that are not part of the normal routine do not become part of the route. Remember, no work performed on a recurring, continuing basis should be recorded on line 22. Generally speaking, recurring office time is an office task that occurs at least once per week, as explained above in the description of line 21. Line 23, counting mail and filling out PS Form 1838C. Only the time spent counting the mail and filling out Form 1838C during the week of count and inspection is recorded on line 23. 3. Fixed office time adjustments. These are base minimum time allowances that must be credited for lines 14, 15, 19, and 21. Line 14, 6 minutes. Line 15, 5 minutes. Line 19, 3 minutes. And line 21, 9 minutes. If a carrier averages above the minimum time for a function during the week of inspection, the carrier will receive the average of the actual time used for that function. If the carrier averaged below the base minimum for any function, the base minimum time will be used for that function. And that's M39 section 222.214B2. Management may attempt to adjust the actual fixed office time entries for the route being inspected. These adjustments must be supported by comments on Form 1838 or Form 1840. General comments such as excessive time, too much time, adequate or sufficient for this function, used on the day of inspection, too slow of a pace, are alone not sufficient for supporting an adjustment to the actual time used. M39 section 222.214B3. However, under no circumstances may the time credit for any line items 14, 15, 19, and 21 fall below the base minimum times as referenced above. M39 222.214B. B. Lines 14 through 23. 1. The entries on line 14 through 23, except line 20, are obtained from carrier's recorded time on Form 1838C. Note, items on lines 14 through 23 are work functions for which actual time is recorded, and the recordings are in minutes. Total entries in the elapsed time column on Form 1838C for each function and transfer to columns E, F, and G as appropriate on Form 1838. 2. There shall be established for each letter route a base minimum time allowance for each line functions 14, 15, 19, and 21 on Form 1838 where applicable. Those base minimum times shall be fixed at 6 minutes for line 14, 5 minutes for line 15, 3 minutes for line 19, and 9 minutes for line 21. If during the week of count and inspection, the carrier's average actual time for any of those line items exceeds the base minimum for the function, the carrier shall be credited with the average actual time, unless an adjustment to that time can be supported by appropriate comments on Forms 1838 or 1840 or any attachments thereto. In no event may the standard time for these functions be below the base minimum. 3. Comments such as excessive time, too much time, adequate or sufficient for this function, used on day of inspection, too slow of a pace, and others similar thereto by themselves are not appropriate comments for the purpose of supporting any such adjustment. To be considered appropriate, those comments must set forth the reasons for the conclusion that less than the average actual time recorded is sufficient for the carrier to perform that function. Be guided by the following. Verifying the mail count. The carrier counts and records the mail every day except on the day of the inspection. On this day, the manager counts and records the mail. When management performs the mail count, the carrier servicing the route may verify the count. M39, Section 221.131. M39, 221.13, General Rules for Making Count. 221.131. The carrier should count and record the mail every day except on the day of inspection, when the mail must be counted and recorded by a manager. On one or more days during the count week, each route will be inspected by a manager. When management performs the mail count, the carrier serving the route, upon request, may verify the mail count. Where handheld computers are used on the days of inspection, the route examiner will complete entries on Form 1838C in the usual manner, except for line item elapsed time totals and mail piece count totals by category. The calculations remain the same as previously performed manually. The carrier will continue to make time clock entries on Form 1838C for beginning, leaving, returning, and ending times. Total mail counts and times will be provided to the carrier on a computer-generated facsimile on Form 1838, Carrier's Count of Mail, Letter Carrier Routes, Management Summary. This provision of the M39 Handbook was defined by a national level settlement long ago, M536. That's M00536. This settlement provides that carriers who request to verify management's count of mail have the right to verify the entire mail count. This settlement means exactly what it says. Counting mail includes the mail counts made by machines. That's DPS. Okay? I'll read that again. This settlement means exactly what it says. Counting mail includes the mail counts made by machines. M536 is reproduced in its entirety on the next page. M536. Dear Mr. Johnson, on November 28, 1984. Now these are still relevant. If management attempts to say that these are too old, these things are antiquated or whatever, these are still relevant. Step 4's M documents are still relevant today, unless management can show you something that has taken its place. These are still relevant. So on November 28, 1984, we met to discuss the above captioned grievance at the 4th step of our contractual grievance procedure. The question in this grievance is whether a letter carrier is entitled to verify mail count. During our discussion, it was mutually agreed that the following would represent a full settlement of this case. Normally, a spot verification of the mail volume is adequate to determine that the mail count is accurate. However, the parties agree that based on the intent of Section 221.131 of the M39 Handbook, the carrier may, upon request, verify the entire mail count. Please sign and return the enclosed copy of this letter as your acknowledgement of agreement to settle this case. Now that's M536. So when it says verify the entire mail count, it does not say verify the flat count or verify the flat and residual residual letters count. Okay, it does not state that. It doesn't say verify the flats and residual mail. It says verify the entire mail count. All right. Curtailing mail. There should not be mail curtailed the day prior to the inspection, beginning and no mail curtailed on the last day of inspection. M39 Section 221.134. M39 221.134. There must be no accumulation of curtailed mail on the day preceding the beginning of the count, and no mail may be curtailed on the last day of the count. For exceptions, see 144, Expedited Preferential Mail Delivery Program. Mail that is distributed to the carriers up to the normal cutoff time will be delivered every day during the count. Now, this is a big one. Okay, this is a big one for us because there are some stations that are saying that they're going to curtail mail into the next day because there's too much mail. And so this is for you. Mail that is distributed to the carriers up to the normal cutoff time will be delivered every day during the count. M39 section 221.136. M39 221.136. All mail distributed to the carriers up to the normal established cutoff time will be delivered every day of the count week except as required by 221.134 and 221.135. Casing mail in the PM. No mail should be cased upon return from the street the day prior to the start of the inspection. Mail should only be cased after returning from the street during the week of inspection if the carrier is normally scheduled to do so throughout the year. If this is to occur on the last day of inspection, the carrier must be clocked off of Form 1838C, M39 Section 221.135. M39 Section 221.135. Carriers must not be allowed to case any mail upon their return to the office on the day preceding the first day of the count period. However, if a carrier is regularly scheduled throughout the year to case mail on return from the street, the carrier must continue to do so during the count period. Carriers must not case any mail for delivery after returning from the street on the last day of the count period until they have clocked off the Form 1838C for the day. For exceptions, see Chapter 1, Part 144, Expedited Preferential Mail Delivery Program. 7. Management provides a copy of PS Form 1838C to carriers. Letter carriers might not receive their duplicate copy of the day's Form 1838C worksheet until the next morning because the manager is required to review the form for errors and irregularities. Any errors or irregularities on the form must be discussed with the carrier before the next day's count so the mistake will not be repeated. I'll read that again. Any errors or irregularities on the form must be discussed with the carrier before the next day's count so the mistake will not be repeated. The Postal Service has acknowledged its obligation to timely provide carriers with copies of Form 1838C in the national level arbitration on 6-day inspections. See 23767. That's C 23767. Arbitrator Briggs noted on page 22 management's position as management provides a carrier with a copy of the former 1838C so they have an opportunity to correct any errors or dispute a management notation. 8. Discipline for not making office standards. No letter carrier can be disciplined for simply not making standards. There must be a showing of unsatisfactory effort. This showing must be based on documented unacceptable conduct that led to the carrier's failure to meet office standards. M39 Section 242.332. M39 242.332. No carrier shall be disciplined for failure to meet standards, except in cases of unsatisfactory effort, which must be based on documented, unacceptable conduct that led to the carrier's failure to meet office standards. Street. Discipline for not making street standards. There are no street standards. In National Level Settlement M304, the parties agreed there is no set pace at which a carrier must walk and no street standard for walking. This language was reinforced in the September 16, 2011 National Level Settlement M1769. The relevant language from these two settlements is shown below. M304. In keeping with the principle of a fair day's work for a fair day's pay, it is understood that there is no set pace at which a carrier must walk and no street standard for walking. Pay attention to your 1838Cs. Pay attention to any comments made about street waiting when management attempts to talk about we're slow walking. A lot of people are sending me these where they're saying that they couldn't keep a good pace. They're fast, they're slow. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I have no street standard. And so make sure that we're paying close attention to any time disallowances because of how I'm walking or how I'm driving. Okay? There is no set pace at which I must walk, and no street standard for walking. Okay? M1769. There is no set pace at which a carrier must walk, and no street standard for walking. These settlements are reproduced in their entirety on the next 2 pages. M304. Recently we met in pre-arbitration discussions of the following cases, and it's got a bunch from New Jersey. Each of these cases involve a disciplinary action as a result of route management. In keeping with the principle of a fair day's work for a fair day's pay, it is understood that there is no set pace at which a carrier must walk and no street standard for walking. So even way back in 1985, they attempted to discipline us because of our street standards, or us not, what they say, making a street standard. And so they said, in keeping with the principle of a fair day's work for a fair day's pay, it is understood that there is no set pace to which a carrier must walk and no street standard for walking. M1769, and this is going to be one that we'll use when we're talking about these new pivot plans as well. And this is the one based off of the office efficiency tool. This will help us with these pivot plan grievances we're going to be filing as well. Remember I gave you that pivot plan the other day on the other podcast. It was talking about them generating the 3996 for us based off of these things that they're using. Well, this is one of the things that's going to help us, okay? So, M1769. And I'll just read the whole thing rather than just the underlined part. The subject office efficiency tool is a management tool for estimating a carrier's daily workload. The office efficiency tool in the greater Indiana district or any similar time projection system tools will not be used as a sole determinant for establishing office or street time projections. I'll read that again. The office efficiency tool in the greater Indiana district or any similar time projection system tools. Okay? Now, that's what they're using when they have these pivot plans. Okay? They're generating these numbers based off DOAS, and then they're handing out 3996s based off the input into DOAS, and they're saying that these routes have all this undertime. They're probably using PET, taking out all of our fixed office time and breaks and all things like that. And so I'll read that again. The office efficiency tool used in the greater Indiana district or any similar time projection system tools will not be used as the sole determinant for establishing office or street time projections. And so that'll go perfectly for your grievances on these pivot plan things they're coming out with. Accordingly, resulting projections will not constitute the sole basis for corrective action. This agreement does not change the principles that, pursuant to Section 242.332 of Handbook M39, no carrier shall be disciplined for failure to meet standards, except in cases of unsatisfactory effort, which must be based on documented, unacceptable conduct that led to the carrier's failure to meet office standards. Furthermore, as stated in the agreement for the case there is no set pace at which a carrier must walk and no street standard for walking. All right? This, go on because this will help you with your pivot plan things. Projections are not the sole determinant of a carrier's leaving or return time or daily workload. The use of any management-created system or tool that calculates a workload projection does not change the letter carrier's reporting requirements outlined in Section 131.4 of Handbook M41. The supervisor's scheduling responsibilities outlined in Section 122 of Handbook M39 or the letter carrier's and supervisor's responsibilities contained in Section 28 of Handbook M41. I'll read that again because this is going to help you with the pivot plan stuff. Projections are not the sole determinant of a carrier's leaving or return time or daily workload. The use of any management-created system, which is what that pivot plan thing is, any created system that or tool that calculates a workload projection does not change the letter carrier's reporting requirements outlined in Section 131.4 of Handbook M41, the supervisor's scheduling responsibilities outlined in Section 122 of Handbook M39, or the letter carrier's and supervisor's responsibilities contained in Section 28 of Handbook M41. So if they're doing the pivot plan stuff in y'all station, M1769. Now, it says here Greater Indiana District on here. This is nationwide. It does not just mean Greater Indiana District. I say that because, I get on my DRT member for management here. She's so dishonest. But she made that argument once. When JB put in M1769, she put that argument in there. This doesn't pertain to Nashville. This only pertains to the greater Indiana district. So she said that. And so it's nationwide. Okay, it's nationwide. So just be careful for idiots that say stuff like that. 2, conduct of the route examiner. Now, we've got the problem with this. A lot of people are messaging me about the conduct of the route examiner. One person got disciplined because the route examiner and them were going at it all day long. All day long they were going at it. So the route examiner comes back, tells on the carrier. They discipline the carrier, give him a 14-day suspension, saying that his conduct was creating a hostile working environment and was failing to maintain a mutual respect atmosphere. So they called me, and I said, hey, that's not your obligation. That's management's obligation under 115.4 of the M39 handbook to maintain an atmosphere of mutual respect. So if y'all are going at it all day, that's on them. That's not on you. The route examiner should have told you, hey, we're not going to talk like that in here, and then nip that in the bud immediately. But if you're telling me that y'all did this all day long and they come back and then they're going to try to get you in trouble, management failed under 115.4 of the M39 handbook because they're the ones, management is the one who is required to maintain a mutual respect atmosphere. And so anyway, conduct of the route examiner, that's for free. I just gave you all that for free there, a little tidbit. The role of the examiner is to observe and accurately record data. Now, they will falsify data. They'll falsify street weighting. They will come up with things to steal time from us. So pay attention. Pay attention. The role of the examiner is to observe and accurately record data. Section 232.1 of the M39 handbook requires the examiner to do the following. M39 232.1. The route examiner must not set the pace for the carriers, but should maintain a position to observe all delivery points and conditions. Now, somebody messaged me today. I'm going to keep doing this. Somebody messaged me today and said that the examiners did not want to ride in the vehicles. So they're riding behind the vehicle in their car, and they would pull up beside the vehicle and look in the vehicle and see what the carrier was doing, and then they would wait till the carrier passed, and then they'd get behind them. That's completely unsafe. Completely unsafe. That'd be a violation of Article 14. And also, Article 19 via Section 232.1 of the M39 handbook. Because how are you going to maintain a position to observe all delivery points and conditions if you're in a separate vehicle behind me? And I would raise that contention, and that would be an instant grievance. Okay, that's not going to be one that I file at the end of everything. I'm filing that one immediately. That's just how I do things. 6-day counts. That's what JB did for me in my last 6-day count, and we're winning grievances before the 6-day count was even up. That's how fast that was happening because they knew that they were wrong. And so, again, not set the pace for the carriers, but should maintain a position to observe all delivery points and conditions. You can't do that in a vehicle behind me. B, not suggest or forbid any rest or comfort stops, but should make proper notations of them. I'll read that one again. B, not suggest or forbid any rest or comfort stops, but should make proper notations of them. C, not discuss with the carrier on the day of inspection the mail volume or the evaluation of the route. These matters must be discussed with the carrier at a later date when all data has been reviewed and analyzed. Now, on my 6-day count, we had one clown come in there. They were all sitting behind this one case, Route 15. There's about 5 managers. And you had this one clown come in, and he starts talking about the mail volume out loud. Well, we don't have any mail in here today. This should be a quick day for us. So I went to the guy that was over the mail count inspection, J.C. Bird. Went to him and said, hey, you need to do something with your boy over here because he's not going to sit there and talk out loud like that about our mail volume. So J.C. sent him home. That was it for dude. He was gone. And so I give it to J.C. on that if anybody knows J.C. Bird. He was not playing. on the 6-day count out at Belmead Station. And so, so not to discuss with the carrier on the day of inspection the mail volume or the evaluation of the route. These matters must be discussed with the carrier at a later date and when all data has been reviewed and analyzed. D. Make notations on the day of inspection on the appropriate form or separate sheet of paper of all items that need attention, as well as comments on the day of inspection. Also list any comments or suggestions for improving the service of the route, as well as suggestions or comments made by the carrier during the course of the inspection for improvement in delivery and collection service. I'll read that again. Make notations on the day of inspection on the appropriate form or separate sheet of paper of all items that need attention, as well as comments on the day of inspection. Also list any comments or suggestions for improving the service on the route, as well as suggestions or comments made by the carrier during the course of the inspection for improvement in delivery and collection service. So that's to be notated. All right? That means written. E. Make comments and suggestions clearly and in sufficient detail for discussion with the carrier and for decision-making purposes. The manager who will actually discuss the results with the carrier must have enough facts and figures to reach a final decision on any necessary adjustment to the route. Any claims of a violation of these requirements should be supported by a detailed statement from the letter carrier involved. 3. Street brake rules. If the route being inspected takes both rest breaks on the street, the brakes will be taken separate from each other. The street brakes must also be separate from the lunch period, M39 section 242.341. M39 242.341. The carriers at the delivery unit will receive 2 10-minute break periods. The local union may annually opt to have either A, both breaks on the street, or B, one of the 10-minute breaks in the office and one break on the street. If 2 10-minute breaks are taken on the street, they will be separate from each other. Breaks must be separate from the lunch period. The carrier shall record on Form 1564A delivery instructions the approximate location of the break. Okay? The approximate location. Not the definitive location. It's the approximate location of the break. Reasonable comfort stops will not be deducted from the carrier's actual time, and y'all run into that a lot on the disallowance of street time. Y'all will run into that a lot. Reasonable comfort stops will not be deducted from the carrier's actual time. Now, what's reasonable and who determines that? Who defines that? We do. We do. We're the ones out there every day. We're the ones out there walking and doing everything. They're just sitting in the back. We're back in their car in the air conditioning. Okay, so we're the ones who determine reasonable, what's reasonable or not. But, and also for your hour office time grievances, M39 242.341, because management's coming in telling a lot of carriers they have to take their breaks on the street. Local union may annually opt to have either a break, both breaks in the street, or one of the 10-minute breaks in the office and one break on the street. All right, so it says the local union may annually opt to have either. So it's not management. Okay? It's not management. When they come in and say, hey, y'all going to start taking y'all's breaks on the street because y'all need to get out of here in an hour. Now that your president has reduced the fixed office time to 20 minutes, they'll say 40 minutes or whatever. But the local union does that, not management. 4. Comfort stops. Section 242.341 of the M39 handbook shown above also provides that reasonable comfort stops will not be deducted from the carrier's actual time. You have to watch out for management trying to deduct time that was used for reasonable comfort stops. There is no one-size-fits-all definition for what the term reasonable means in this instance. While management likes to put a number to everything, this is one of those situations where they just can't do that. Nature and geography control the amount of time that is reasonable for comfort stops. I read this again because this is going to be one of the biggest things when we get into looking at these forms, these deductions of times, these street waiting times. This is going to be one of the top 2 or 3 that you're going to have to deal with. So M39, section 242.341. M39, section 242.341. provides that reasonable comfort stops will not be deducted from the carrier's actual time. You have to watch out for management trying to deduct time that was used for reasonable comfort stops. There is no one-size-fits-all definition for what the term reasonable means in this instance. While management likes to put a number to everything, this is one of those situations where they just can't do that. Nature and geography control the amount of time that is reasonable for comfort stops. 5. Improper deductions of street time. Management may not just make a time deduction because a letter carrier allegedly failed to properly finger mail or take proper shortcuts. Instead, management is required to instruct the letter carrier to use proper procedures and make every effort to reinspect the route prior to adjustments being implemented. M39 section 242.344. Shop stewards, pay attention to this one, okay? M39 242.344. If during the route inspection the supervisor notes that the letter carrier fails properly to finger mail or to take proper shortcuts, and that those failures were sufficient enough to warrant a time adjustment for the route, a reinspection will be made after the letter carrier has been instructed regarding the proper procedures to be used. Every effort will be made to conduct such reinspection prior to the implementation of the adjustments in the delivery unit. 6. Week after route count and inspection. PS Form 1840B. Remember that when the week of inspection is over, the carrier is not finished with the inspection process. The week after the route count and inspection is the 8th week used for completing the 1840B time card analysis. M39 section 242.324. M39 242.324. The average street time for the week following the week of count and inspection, including only the days the regular carrier serviced the route, shall then be recorded on Form 1840B and averaged into the 7 weeks random time analysis to obtain an 8-week composite week average. If the regular carrier did not serve the route on at least one of the days of the week following the inspection, that week will not be used in computing the street time allowance for the route. The average weekly street times for those weeks will then be transferred to Form 1840. And so there you have it for today's episode. Just remember to tell your carriers they're not home free after the 6-day count. The week after counts as well. And to do the things that they're supposed to be doing, all right? So there you have it. Another round of 6-day counts. I'm still in my uniform. Just walked in the back door, straight into this office, and doing this episode. Because I didn't want to be up late tonight doing it. But so there's another episode. 6-day counts. Very important. We're in the middle of it, right? Sunday, don't forget, CLC is doing LMOU training nationwide. Get on concernedlettercarriers.com. It's on all my sites. The sign up, it's got a scan for you. Sign up for LMOU training, branch presidents that have never done them. If anybody's just curious about it, sign up and listen. We got a lot of people that's going to be in there. About 12 people are going to be on there talking about different line items. The LMOU process is very different. Very different. Arbitrations for LMOUs, very different and unique. Okay, so make sure y'all sign up for that. It's branch presidents. And we're going to put a lot of training out there for you. A lot of good training going on everywhere, really. And so we'll put that out for you Sunday, okay? So I will talk to y'all Sunday. That will probably be my episode Sunday on that other podcast, all right? And then I'll be back next Wednesday on the Lion's Den. More 6-day count, more reading, all right? I almost put myself to sleep every Wednesday reading. I yawn so much doing that. It's crazy because I hate reading. But, I mean, I used to read all the time. I've got books over here that I've read, all of Stephen King stuff, John Grisham. I've read everything. But I'm so old now that when I start reading, I'll put myself to sleep. So, anyway. I love you, City Letter Carriers, very much. I would not be doing this if I didn't. I love you, and better days are coming, okay? Hold your head up high. Better days are coming. But I love you sincerely, and I'll do anything I can to protect you and to help you. All right. I'll talk to y'all Sunday with the CLC with LMOU training. All right. Take care. Bye.